Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey, it's Debbie Potts, the host of the Low Carb Athlete, and I'm here to talk about all things health, as I love to share new ways, new tricks, biohacks, new strategies, stacks that you can implement into your lifestyle to learn how to burn fat, improve your performance, and of course, the aging process. So I know I'm all about living my best life, the second half of my life. Somehow I am turning 50 this November 5th, and I am on a mission to be in the best shape of my life and be healthiest inside and out. So I'm doing everything I can. I am coaching for Ben Greenfield now part-time, and I'm learning so much as I have to research all of Ben's millions of articles he's written in all of his books. So I'm on a quest to improve my own health, and I hope you are a part of the journey on the same mission as myself. So today I'm having Dr. Melanie on the show to talk about the intuitive edge. What is the intuitive edge and how that can really help me, help you as an individual get an edge on life and be the best version of yourself. As we are athletes, we are often fit and look good on the outside, but inside we are a mess. So there's different things I've been working on that I will just throw in the intro here now, but adding glutamine into my drinks after workouts and adding glycine, 5 grams, 1 scoop or 2 scoops in there, and my Keon aminos and creatine. And I've been adding bone broth shakes. I like Ancient Nutrition protein bone broth mix, and I've been doing that each day. I've also been doing Keon colostrum on an empty stomach. You put 1 scoop in your mouth and let it absorb with a little bit of water if you have a dry mouth. Do that morning and evening. Fascinating little rabbit hole I've been going down is watching clients I'm coaching full time, my VIP clients, looking at their Oura Ring or Whoop Ring scores, or their HRV, as well as my own, that my HRV score has gone up a lot. And I'm correlating that with a sign that I am healing my gut with the colostrum and everything I've been doing. So there's a lot of different hacks. It's N equals 1 is biohacking. Self-experiment, what works, what doesn't work. I've been doing the ketone aid, doing a little cap before I start working. Like this morning, I get a little bit more intense work done, focusing, podcasting, writing, researching, and then also trying that at sleep time, or helping my sleep, taking a little ketone aid at night. So I have a podcast coming up on that. But also I've been taking glycine before bed as well to see if that helps. So it's hard, the other night I thought I was going to throw up. I took so many different things. So it's like, okay, there's, limit to what we should be taking and experimenting one thing at a time, not, maybe overstacking things. And I have a very sensitive stomach, so too much of anything is not good on me. So I was taking like this sleepy time sleep aid supplement and some magnesium, because we need like 500 to 800 milligrams of magnesium, most of us do, and I take that at night. And then taking some lipocom by Quicksilver, and then I was doing the ketone aid, and then I was doing the glycine and taking that with some water and some acetyl carnitine. So I've been doing all this stuff. So not too much on the belly isn't good. So I'm going to bring on Dr. Melanie. We did a part 1 more on SIBO a few weeks ago, and now we're going to go into a little more the intuitive edge that she was kind of getting towards at the end. Is like, hey, that's really interesting to me. I want to talk about that in the show. So I asked her to come back so we can dive into what that's all about. So I will push pause and we'll have her on in a moment. Let me know if you have any questions. I know this summer is coming up here as I record today, July and August. I'm not going to do a lot of recording. So if there's certain topics that you want me to talk about and do some solo podcasts, let me know. I'm just kind of evaluating what topics we want to go into more in the fall and how I can be better podcaster for you and get you the right information you want to know about, as I learn a lot, as I said, working for Ben Greenfield now and diving into all the different things that we can do as athletes. As I was saying, the glycine and the glutamine is really fascinating stuff, and the sodium loading, and learning from the book, The Mineral Fix, I just ordered, and it's like 800 pages, I think half of it's references, but so much to dive into that I can do some solo podcasts if you want. So let me know, and we'll just talk to you soon. I know you can go to my website, debbiepotts.net, and you can message me there or on social media. I'm the Low Carb Athlete on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm not on Facebook as often as I am on Instagram. I try to limit how much social media time I have. So I'll be back soon. Hold on. Let's get Dr. Melanie. All right, I've got Dr. Melanie on the show, the Intuitive Edge Doctor, to talk all things intuitive and how that has to do with us being healthy and vibrant self, and finding how we can improve the aging process. As I turn 50 this November, I'm all about how to optimize my health and live my best life the second half of my life. So thanks for coming on to diving into more of a part 2 episode of health today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This I get really charged up, and I'm very excited to talk about it.
So let's kind of just dive in. What is Intuitive Edge, and why are you the Intuitive Edge Doctor?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to, ultimately we're all intuitive, but we also get placed into, say, for example, structures, which of course we need for information, for expertise, et cetera, et cetera. And yet sometimes we'll lose that very, very clear message that's coming through. One of the examples I'll give is, so fish oil is good for XYZ, and the studies show, so, blank, blank. And yet I also know from somebody's genetic or epigenetic tendencies, more at the enzymatic level, that an excess of that fish oil can also have an effect that can perhaps be negative in that individual. And there's like so many other variables. So perhaps that person is saying to their doctor, I don't know why, but fish oil, you see what I'm saying? Like when I started taking it, this happens. And doctor just thinks, understandably, because they have this evidence-based information, that they don't necessarily hear the nuance that that patient is directly. And for me, I just like light up because I go, ooh, they're telling me some new juicy information about themselves. And then they get a new light in themselves too, of like, oh, okay, this is something, I should bring this up. And so those were the things that I started to see in treating SIBO, because SIBO had this like very blanketed, as we need that structure, like I said. But when we zoomed into these individuals, I would say, more specifically, we're on the Low Carb Athlete podcast. However, I started to ask people to gently start to bring in carbohydrates, and it can be, right, starchy vegetables. We weren't talking about processed foods here. We're talking about gently bringing in carbohydrates. And what I found was that they just had this very interesting, well, I'll call it glucose got to the brain response. And I call it their dimmer switch went up. And I was like, interesting. And some people had more of an insulin resistance because of the length of time they had been so low carb. And the brain was like going to say, I'm going to take that first. So there's some interesting dynamics that then you take the personality into account. So when I was able to get right to it, and then also I guess the best way I can say it is that I'm able to read or scan or feel, sense, whatever the exact word is, but I can pick up some additional things about someone's energy. So yes, we can say, this is what's happening with this fish oil. And I'll say, let's take the gas off, let's maybe put on the brakes. And at the same time, there might be significant other things that are happening in this person's life that we actually need to address. And before, I really wasn't saying those things. Like it wasn't pertinent to the way that the intake was going. And yet when some things came through, and it's not a lot of patients that this necessarily happened with until I really stepped into it myself, because I was like, am I not necessarily crossing a line, but I was like, how am I going to bring this up to someone? And yet, so in a couple of cases, it was very, very loud. And when I said just intuitively the things that were coming to me, it's like this look that the person has of like, how did you know that? And yet it also is unlocking something that then unlocked the specifics in their case to either treat the SIBO, resolve the bloating, whatever that thing that person has been chasing is.
Yeah. I think that's so individualizing coaching is so essential to really getting the results that people need. And that's, why they need to hire people as yourself, is that we get this kind of one size fits all approach to fixing something, whereas you're looking at the genetics as well as, listening to the body and getting those red flags and doing something about it. I think a lot of times we get that feedback from our body that this doesn't feel good on me, but what to do about it. And that it's like, oh, I'm told to take this much essential fatty acids a day, or, I'm told to do this, and you're following a protocol, but then it's not feeling right in your body. Kind of, is that?
Yeah. I mean, I have another quick example of someone who's taking a B complex. And they were a high executive, like app developer. And I was like, can you please just pause that B complex? And for them, it was like, but I'm taking this for, again, the XYZ reason. And I said, just please, 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 for 72 hours, will you just pause? Then I'll say pause instead of stop.
Yeah.
And it was like this huge shift in anxiety, and it was actually self-reported. They said, oh my goodness, my insomnia like resolved and my anxiety dropped significantly, and it was just really great for them to experience it themselves and have a very clear recognition. I say, look, I know that B complex is fabulous, right? And it was a great company, etc. However, for you right now in this moment, what's happening with your company, etc., it was causing the problem.
That's so true. I've just been, looking at people's labs. I've clients recently that they had way too high B12, and it was like huge 1,000% or whatever of their B12 that they need, and way more than they need. And it's more like the why. Why is that high? What's, not working? Then you look at these, high performing individuals that listen to podcasts and follow different people, and they like take this, every supplement they have has like 2,000% B12. So it's like, yeah, pause on what you're doing and let's figure out the why. And do we really need to take 10 different supplements with B12? Because we know we need B12, we know B vitamins, but I think people that are usually coming to me, or probably you, that they're that, the high performing type A, AAA personality, that they hear something and then they like overdo it. So it's always that less is more for a lot of people. More is not better, and figure out that right balance for your body. It's funny.
Or they're multitaskers, right? So they go, oh, look, this has everything in it. But they don't realize that when they layer upon layer, like you're saying, that there might be one ingredient that actually it's like, oh, well, this is convenient. It has so many things in one capsule or a few capsules. But like you say, I always look for that. What's that one thing? And B12 is a common one where it's like, well, it could just be, and zinc. Zinc is another one we really need to look out for in balancing it with copper. So especially since, right, zinc got some popularity due to a virus coming around. So those are just things that we want to be able to, again, bring back in balance, or say, does that pertain to me?
So kind of go into what is intuition? Do you have like a summary of what is intuition and having that intuitive edge? What can people do to learn like what that is, and how can they find it again? Because I think a lot of people lost that ability. Sympathetic dominance, overdrive in life's chronic stress. Kind of talk about that, what it is and how we can find it again.
Well, and I mean, again, I think it's like we're talking about, call it the voices in our head, but we hear our own voice, or we even have I call it the panel in our heads. And the panel can range from, I call it the mean girls to the really, like there's just a range. And then you have where if you can't shut that down and allow the cheerleaders to come in, this is the whole concept of the limiting beliefs and, and positive affirmation. Like, so it's really about acknowledging our thoughts and what are we focusing on? Because again, if I give somebody, let's say if we're giving somebody a protocol, and there are so many people who know what they've been given isn't right for them. And there's a difference between, right, we even have placebo effect. So placebo, it can be even like this, you could call that intuition of saying, well, I think I'm getting it, so I'm going to like manifest that this is taking action on my body. Yeah. And the reverse can even happen when a protocol is given, but instead of that being, oh, I better be compliant and this is gonna work because I put money into it and this is said, expert, but they actually have a deep-rooted intuition, or again, they're on that protocol that they know that it's not right for them. And I think it's just about even being open to that conversation. Let's face it, as doctors, as practitioners, like we get busy. There is a reason for there to be maybe some sort of a protocol to be formed. But at the same time, also as a practitioner, we have an intuition of like, you know what, even though I'm blanketing this thought or this, I'm going to give them this said supplement, it's my intuition that it's going to do these things in this person. Wouldn't you agree with me?
Yeah.
Right. So this is an action all of the time. In fact, when we're in medical school and they ask us for differential diagnoses. So, I mean, that's basically my summary is worst case scenarios. So you think it might just be hypertension, however, high blood pressure. However, what's the worst case scenario? Or we don't really think about the end result of if this blood pressure continues. Instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it, or I grew up in Southeast Alaska, patching the boat, you actually take the boat out of water and you fix the boat. So these are just things that, again, getting back to that, like, let's listen. And epigenetics, I just listened to an amazing talk yesterday about being able to measure methylation and how methylation is going to, with AI, give us a lot of information about the variations of risk factors that are influencing aging. And so that's just also very exciting. So it's like we can, again, have these things that we can maybe measure quantitatively, but then we also need to work with the individual in saying, okay, here are these things that can be great preventative measures, but we also have to, I mean, ideally, have to isn't the best way, but ideally we would have a great attitude about it, right?
Yeah.
And be like, yay, these are the things I can do. But of course, life happens, sugar tempts us, or we get charged by something. I prefer to use charge versus trigger, because something that gives us a charge, we can actually choose to reduce the energy to. So again, that's something that I really am seeing more and more. I'm like, wow, we have a temperature of 98.6 degrees where, that is energy, right? And in fact, I saw for a time period, quite a few people who had low body temperature, and even worked with like Wilson's temperature syndrome, right? Because I'm like, well, yeah, if the oven's not hot enough to bake the, paleo bread,
yeah,
then it's not gonna, it's not gonna get baked.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So kind of going back to your saying genetics, how do you work with people in their genetics and tying kind of what you do with epigenetics, so their lifestyle, and let's kind of dive into the basics of that. I think that's always good to review.
Right. So let's say, for example, we have that person who's taking all said supplements and for all of these wonderful, various, well-researched reasons, but then I receive, and I also am simultaneously getting a epigenetic report that gives me, again, their tendencies. It's not a given. It's like, this is the possibilities, and you have to consider all of these influence such as pollution, excess estrogen, lipopolysaccharides, testosterone. These things are playing their roles in a symphony all over all the time.
Yeah.
And so that gives me more of like what I call a roadmap or a legend of, per se, of like things I could come into seeing in people's labs. So there could be, oh, there's that tendency. There's more of the assessment as to why this person has higher B12 levels, for example. And that gives the reasoning of more information on the map to say where we are and where we're headed. And this new methylation test. So there's so many epigenetic tests that people can make. It's overwhelming for the consumer and for the practitioner, quite frankly. They're just like new ones and new reports coming out almost every other day. And so we want to be able to apply this information. And so that's where I'm always at the forefront of getting the new information to say, well, what does this mean? Why are we getting this information and how can we apply it? So while we have access to what we do have, I'm also, again, receiving, I guess, information for that individual on how to compilate all of that information and make it something that they can apply today. Mm-hmm. So what's a good example of that is, I guess, going back to SIBO, is bile. Mm-hmm. Bile is a natural antimicrobial. It also recycles our hormones. It plays a role in that. And when we have bacterial overgrowth, they basically take bile's action away. It's like saying, nope, you're no longer antimicrobial. And when I get that initial report that I mentioned, that gives me like a legend. I'll use myself as an example. I found out that I have a propensity to not make adequate bile. So if something interferes with my bile, then that's going to reduce my bile production even more. And I can do as much as I want to cleanse my liver, detox the liver, support my liver to make more bile, which is great. But also at the level of making the actual bile, if my body doesn't have adequate phosphatidylcholine, because bile is composed 70% of phosphatidylcholine. So I need to ensure my body is not only getting adequate phosphatidylcholine, but absorbing adequate phosphatidylcholine as well. And then we can even get into sources of phosphatidylcholine. However, when I noticed that or found this out epigenetically about myself, I was like, oh my gosh, it like turned things around, because it's like, okay, I can now titrate in a certain amount of phosphatidylcholine. I was able to then see my body respond to that, like, thank you for the assistance, and shift things. So what do I mean by that? If I was originally taking a set amount of ox bile, that was really kind of great working for me. Then I introduced the phosphatidylcholine. I found that I didn't need to use as much ox bile. So I could titrate off that ox bile. So again, ox bile was the Band-Aid. The underlying root cause, right, is because my car is made up where it needs a little more help in that system. So, and I wouldn't have necessarily known that until I had an intuitive hunch, right, of putting those things together, of bringing that together with SIBO.
Is that looking at your genetic SNPs and looking at your symptoms that you have, so you were able to see that you need a little more support as phosphatidylcholine?
Correct. Not necessarily just symptoms. It's the microbes themselves. It's hormone. I mean, it goes deep into physiology. It's essentials. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that fun though? It's just like that. I was said for years, the onion and peeling the layers of the onion off to figure, okay, why is this happening? Why is that? And then it's, being that health detective investigator, you're kind of putting all those pieces of the puzzle together to make sense of it, and looking at all this information, then how to solve a puzzle. It's so fun once you figure that out. It's like, that was it. But it's very time consuming too, though. It's not just like, that's why you don't get results, I think, seeing a doctor in 15 minutes. But, I'll get someone's information. It takes me a week of working nonstop every day to really put all that together versus like 30-minute visit. So it is, to really get results, I think you have to get a little bit more information from someone and investigate a little deeper if you're struggling, if you're that person struggling, not getting anywhere, you can't figure out the why, then you need to find someone as yourself. So,
right. Or like I say, if you're spinning in the hamster wheel, right, over and over and over, and you're like, or you're treating, or you're at the carnival, you're treating this, then you're treating that, you're the whack-a-mole, you're like, oh, it's parasites, oh, it's mold, oh, it's Lyme. And I'm like, well, let's maybe see what's the common denominator. And another thing is, like, for example, things will just like fall out of my mouth. It sometimes is like in a consult or in a session where I'll bring something up where sometimes it'll be really pertinent to like their medical history or something. It'll be like, you know, something going on, right? It's a personal story that it just like, I've never told anybody this. If I could tell you the number of times that people have said that to me, even throughout my whole life. So that's also very interesting. It actually just happened yesterday where I said something, there's kind of like, we're both like taken aback, like kind of why I said it, just kind of like, I call it a download where it just falls out of my mouth. And they're like, well, yeah, I actually have, you know, and it was so significant to the case. And I think that person thinks they've said something, but because it's like, oh, it's something I'm going to get handled. But that's not part of my body. You know, that's not the part of the body you're handling right now. You see? And so we also have to have the information.
Yeah. That's so crazy. It's just weird to probably, do you look back and like, okay, how did that even happen? That's just so crazy that you can bring up some things inside that haven't, stories that came out, you know, 20 years ago that happened. And then they're like, oh, this relates to this experience now in the current time.
Oh, very much so. That was actually a very, very pertinent case that I honestly wish I even had video of the before and after. And this person knows what I mean, because it was, yeah, it was very profound. But the big ones are with colleagues. The big ones are with pretty high up there colleagues that are like, oftentimes they have been seeing them at their specialty in the conventional model. And we know each other, we see each other, and they're like, oh, that person found you, huh? And I'm like, yeah, they sure did. And it's like, well, how's that going? And I'm like, great. You know, or they actually report back to that specialist and I'm like, do you know this? Like, I have this one patient who is very new, didn't have any clue about naturopathy. And that was just very nice to just see this, you know, to be even introduced to it and to, you know, because it was, even when they came to me at that time, they said, in 2 weeks, it'll be 11 years that I've been doing this. And, you know, stacks upon stacks of records, CDs upon CDs, zip drive. I mean, it was intense. I actually it was, yeah, wow. I had a little bit of a mini moments because I was like, whoa. Because like you just mentioned, people just don't necessarily know how much that there is involved. And it's actually how and why I shifted to the business structure that I have now. However, it was just very great to have this person then go back and report and say, here's all these things that are no longer here. How is that possible? Yeah. You know, and thankfully they know me and they saw what the tests and well, thankfully they know me, but it's also that very interesting. How do I explain it to them also? So sometimes it can be a little challenging, to be honest.
Yeah, crazy. So how do you get to be the intuitive edge? Did you go through training? I mean, it seems like something, it's just your innate ability to see things. And do you have extra additional training that you did to get into this area of it, to collaborate with your previous training in naturopathic doctor?
Yes, well, I have some initial training. There is a certification and actually continuing medical education in medical intuition. So, wow. And so I started that certification and then actually had a very loud intuitive hit to not do it that way, actually. In fact, because I really believe, I mean, I'm just saying this out loud, that I have a method to teach as well. And within that, just conflict, you know, there were just things there that I was like, there is a different way for me to gather this information. And I chose to proceed with my continuing education in other areas, epigenetics and CBD and cannabis, actually. And then I got my more work in intuitive and energy medicine. I'm certified in a high E70 energy through a different model outside of the medical field. But I really enjoy and like to see the evidence that's being shown. In fact, there was even some work done at Stanford where they were looking at this woman who was practicing energy healing, not only on DNA, but to water. She was able to shift the pH of the water, like not she, but the energy she was channeling was able to shift the pH in the water, which the researchers were found very profound. This was in a recent documentary that I watched. And so that just really excites me. That really lights me up too, to be able to say, I want to participate. Let's see what this is. And just by way of the sessions that I've been offering, in fact, I just had a colleague reach out to me. They were like being nice to me, like, oh, I'll be your demo patient, but they had such a profound, like, whoa, and were giving me these very interesting feedback, and just contacted me saying, can I pay you for another session? I think my heart rate variability is better, and I think this is better. And I said, well, that's really interesting, because I just had another person, again, this is their feedback, saying that their asthma is better. And I'm just watching this in interest, so yeah, that's exciting, more exciting to me.
Mhm. I love that. So I was just finding some research articles, just going down a rabbit hole this week on HRV and healing, and looking at Jodie Cohen's book. I have is like her Heal the Brain Guide from Vibrant Blue Oils, and just talking about heart rate variability, the vagal tone, and using my Aura Ring score for myself and some clients I'm coaching, that the HRV score just went whew, like just super improved. I was like, what's different that's causing it to go from 60, 70 to 120? And I started digging, is there any research studies on HRV and gut repair, or like this person has Lyme disease and that the things are starting to work, and there's vagal tone toxicity Jodie talks about in her book. And so it's really fascinating that you can actually have some markers that are things working, what's changing by looking at just simple thing as your HRV score. It's kind of fun to see the changes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also this same colleague had done a continuous blood glucose monitor, and had seen that running increased, so I was just like, yeah, it's like, we're both scientists, right? And I'm like, hey, but I can channel this energy now. And even as I'm learning about it, it's just fascinating to me, because not only I cannot deny the changes and shifts that have happened in my own body and life, but to have other people respond and give the feedback. I'm like, okay, I see it being more integrated, and you can find it in PubMed under biofield therapy.
So do you use any devices like PEMF, MADS, what type of any things are you just
I'll be honest with you. I was into all that. I attend the biohacking conferences. I'm into it because I like to see what people are drawn to. But I know that I was attracted to learning about and being attuned to this energy to actually show. And I would like to do tests. In fact, I'm going to now do it myself, if not offer it to patients in my program, to say, let's do this methylation test. Let's do energy work instead, because I often find out it's up to the individual. This is just me, myself, and I am less tech. Again, I grew up in Southeast Alaska at a time when people didn't even have telephones. We had one channel, like television station, satellite television. So I like to unplug. I literally unplug my Wi-Fi at night.
Well, you're in LA now, right? That's
exactly.
Quite the contrast of
it is quite the contrast. And I think that's why I have to reduce, because I'm in it. I'm in a lot of energy. So that's just, again, me. And I'm feeling and seeing and radiating a new frequency that I'm like, okay, let's see what can change. Let's see what markers. Again, if a colleague who's very much taking measurements, is telling me this information. I'm not asking, I'm not following this, right? It's being provided. So that is something that brings me joy, and that's what it's about. Because if people can save the money or save the analyzation or save, right? Even when people are trying to improve their sleep and then they're watching these monitors and like, oh, what's going on? I'm like, let's relax.
Yeah. When there's too much stuff, I think a lot of people get too much, like they have their infrared saunas and they have their biomat and the PMF mat, and then they have the red light therapy, and then they're doing their cold showers and all this stuff, and then they have 20 supplements they're taking. And I want to say, can we just get rid of everything for a week or two and just do a detox of everything that you're taking and reset? That is just like, what's nature is supposed to give us, and what are we, go out like to Alaska or go in the woods or go walk on the beach for a week and just unplug from everything. It'd be interesting to do that too. Because I think some people are, the more is better philosophy. People are driven individuals may see more results if they
Hmm.
just take off everything for cycle it in and out.
Agreed, because it becomes another job, right? It's this biohacking job. And I'm like, well, wait, so again, everything within moderation and flow and yeah. So these are the nice things that I've realized about my childhood. I'm like, oh, whoa, you slowed way down. There wasn't even a jet that flew into Juneau at that time.
Wow. And you're not that old, so you're
I'm not,
I was
exactly.
gonna say, you
That's what I
sound
was
like
thinking. I was like,
you're not 80 years old living out in the 1920s.
yeah, but it was you took 4 hours on the ferry,
Wow.
to get to my hometown. So very slow down. Yeah.
Wow.
So sometimes let's just think of it, like you say, just to reduce things and, because it's this like, oh, I have to, and I better. And I'm like, not if your body's saying time out, let's maybe just, yeah.
So I hear you say a lot of these things that you're helping people heal and rebuild from SIBO or whatever their health issues are in their labs, but you're looking at not just giving them a whole supplement protocol. It's looking at so much more that I think not everyone pays attention to really restore their body back to balance, to homeostasis. Is not just about taking different supplements, that it's a lot more intuitively to learn that skill, what they need to do as an individual.
Right, that, and thank you, just reminded me of like all those things we just talked about are all external. So there can also be, or there's perhaps this like stress because people are like, oh, I have to be able to afford the next thing,
Yeah.
and all of these things. And so there's that added stress to be like, oh, am I doing enough? So that was thank you. I wanted to say it's all about also coming back into internal, these breathing techniques, the cold shower, these things that are free and natural things to do aren't about, oh, I'm ticking off that I've done that. I've stimulated my physiology and I did this and I reset my, that's great and all right, intellectually, but it is also about tuning in and nurturing yourself and nourishing yourself and having that moment. And I think oftentimes people then will get overwhelmed with, oh yeah, and then I have to add in some meditation. But your meditation can just be even in that moment in the cold shower where you're going, this is my moment and I'm doing this for me. And I think some people will check in or go, am I doing it for me? And if that happens, then be like, oh, interesting, right? There's more in, like you say, the onion. And I really enjoy getting to know people well. It's quality over quantity in the sense of watching them have that discovery and seeing who they are. Go, wow, I'm the only thing that comes into the world and leaves the world. I've got to handle me. I'm the one in these relationships. I'm the one attracting this money. So how do I make my energy the best source possible?
That's really valuable, because I know a lot of clients that they'll have this full workout, like say they're using Training Peaks and they have their workouts, and then like Ben has some clients that I have from him using like wake up and do your cold, your barefoot, or go outside for a walk, get outside sunlight, cold shower, do movement throughout the day. Then you have this mobility workout, then you have your kettlebell workout, and all these different things. But then it's just like I feel these clients will just check them off the box. Like you said, it's like doing that meditation when you're like, okay, I got to fit this in. Like I have 10 things I need to get done this day on top of working a ton of hours. And I was like that before I changed my life, that I was fitting in yoga at 5:30 to 7 p.m. 3 nights a week and trying to get that in. I was like, okay, I should be at home chilling and go to bed at 7:30, not adding something else on my list to relax and get my yoga in. But it was actually just another stressor. I was adding another layer onto my busy day. So I think it is really looking at going, okay, is this beneficial for me? Sometimes is better. I'm going to get more results if I don't do all these things on my list today, even if they're health building things to do. But if I'm already overwhelmed, isn't this just filling my beaker of stress doesn't have that filter of this is actually a good thing or not, but there's too much of anything I just find can be just another way to break ourselves down and not grow from that.
Absolutely. I'm so hanging on every word.
It's just, I find it so much because I'll get people that are so busy and, they're like me, that we try to do more is better philosophy instead of the Goldilocks, like just find the right amount for you. But I was doing that for years, burning the candle at both ends, even though there are all these health building things. But now I feel like I'm going back to it now that I'm coaching more people that are trying to do all these different biohacks. Like, okay, is this even good anymore?
Right.
It's
I
just
think we talked
ridiculous.
about last time this
Yeah.
orthobiohackia, or whatever
Yeah.
the term could be, because it's only about, again, let's get back to that. Listen to your inner voice. If your inner voice is just like, oh, I don't want to, or, oh, I'm tired, or, oh, do I have to? No.
Yeah.
Like, be your own boss too, in a sense. And I know that can be easier said than done, or open up to somebody about, or talk to hopefully your coach about it. And because in my opinion, it's not necessarily 100% beneficial if it starts to become a stress or a job or something that like people feel they have to do, or they're not successful enough at it.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
we want to be a cheerleader for every single step and everything positive we do every day, and every single positive thought. Because when we radiate that out, it's a ripple effect. So everybody who's doing all the wonderful and very best things for your body right now, fantastic.
Yeah, it's finding that right balance for you. And it goes day to day. Some days you're going to feel like, okay, I'm tired. Is this really going to benefit me today? And what does my body need? Maybe it needs to just lie down and read a book in the sun.
I love that, actually, because I've gotten more into astrology for business, actually.
Oh, cool.
And what I found is I have this digital calendar, and actually that what you just described is more what we'd say is a moon day. So the moons last for around 2 to 2.5 days. So on water days, we don't really feel like we want to journal, we want to lounge and stretch and read and just maybe tune out people. Today's an air day, so it was a great day to talk and do more podcasting.
Really?
Cool. So it's really, and once I've now seen it, I'm now a third month in where they say, okay, it takes, a few months for you to start to see this. It's fascinating. Wow. So on Earth days are all about our body. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's like really when I'm like, it's fascinating.
Wow.
So.
What's that called?
Oh, I can send you, it's a moon site planner.
Oh, I want that.
Yeah. So they have a digital and a hard copy version.
How fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that interesting looking at detox protocol. I was researching the full moon because I've always heard about that went to full, like parasites, pathogens are more active on a full moon, and that's when you should do a detox, and it's kind of cool to do things by the moon. So anyway.
Yeah, this is totally for business, and you can see how it pertains to your life. So
yeah,
those are other things that if we can acknowledge them, that's kind of nice to factor in.
Love that. So I know I always go over time, but the CBD is something I want to bring up as well. You mentioned that you use that. So anything we can throw in about how you use CBD into your program to help people feel their best, and how do you incorporate that?
Sure. So one of the challenging things with CBD specifically can be what delivery, what form, am I really getting it? Am I absorbing it properly? So one of the testing that I can offer is about CBD metabolism. So it'll look to see what the response, more, again, this isn't an exact, it's propensities, right? What's the likelihood that these things could happen? And it's really nice because it'll look at the not only CBD metabolism, but it looks at sleep, it looks at inflammation, anxiety, and I believe there's a piece that relates to like alcohol tolerance. So it's looking at these specific SNPs related to these pathways as to how we process CBD. So that helps significantly in order to say, okay, if we are taking this CBD for the intention of improved sleep, and this report comes back that that's maybe not, it's going to need a higher or an adjustment in dose, that can be incredibly helpful, because it can also be quite costly to kind of have to dabble in finding out what works for you. You'll always hear from the person where it's like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And you try and repeat that and it
doesn't work.
It's not always reproducible, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I know that same thing with all supplements I find is how is your body absorbing it? And CBD, I know that, what is it, 10 years now it's been out, or 5 years? I don't know. It's been a while, it feels like. And so many brands came out all at once, and what to get, when to take it, if I need it, is it actually doing anything? Is it absorbing my body? So it's just, so many purposes, but what do you
Mhm.
find is the best for use of it for people? Like, why do you recommend it, or when?
I'm an educator. So in the state of California, again, I'm not telling people exactly how to dose or well, more specifically, I'm not able to sell it and make a profit. So I like to be specific on that. Okay. But in educating people about the benefits, I am always looking for, and I'll tell you, it's similar to epigenetics. There are so many new technologies coming out very frequently. But right now, the technology and what I'm looking at is nano delivery. And then again, that can get into different forms and different, quite frankly, quality controls and everything. So it's something that's why I decided to get deeper into not only the industry, but the education and continuing education of it. So more often than not, people are coming to me explaining to what they are taking and what works for them, because I'll say, why are you taking this?
Yeah.
And they'll say, it does this. I'm like, are you sure? Because placebo is powerful, right? I'm not being sassy. I'm just actually asking, and they'll say yes when I have stopped it or such and such. Then I investigate more of that product or that mechanism of action, and look at the report. Just to be honest with you, right? To say, okay, and that's what got my interest in doing more education on this. Is like, this is being self-reported to me. And I'm very specific with the California board of like, what can I say? What can I say? Especially when it comes to cannabis, that's a whole other story. We don't even go there. But if somebody's talking, has it on their intake, then again, I have found it fascinating, but I'm not going to be adjusting their dose or recommending specifics.
Yeah, but you educate them on like, why is this working? Why you should.
Correct. This is likely is anti-inflammatory. Again, they're saying this helps me for my sleep. And I'm writing that in my notes. This must have an anti-inflammatory. Now we have the genetic test, like I say. So as things are coming, like you mentioned, over the years, right? We have more information, more valid, more, and more coming from the people telling us. So it's important for practitioners to be educated on it.
Yeah, for sure. It's so much to learn, and it's always something new coming out too. You always have to research every day almost, if you could.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, because I'll tell you, I get approached with free products all the time. And so many people do, many influencers do. Just be mindful of that, and really do your research and ask and question and get third-party testing. That is my recommendation.
Yeah. It's an extra part-time job if you want to get into that. That's why I like working for Ben now. I'm like, just, whatever, he already went through it all. Trust what he said.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
It works. So how do people get started and reach you, and how do you work with people?
Well, people can start. I have a binaural beat meditation, guided meditation.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And that's my opt-in on my website. And also there's an application process to talk to me one-on-one and see how we can, really get to know each other and customize a program for the person. That's the way that people can work with me at this time.
Cool. Now, just go back, finish up with what is the binaural beats meditation? How does that help people so they can go check it out?
Sure. Well, I'll just tell it from my story of like, I kind of was I need to multitask my meditation. And it was actually a patient of mine who's also a music producer, and kind of came up with this in terms of like, let's have something like take us away and bring us back. And the opt-in is a 10-minute version. Ideally, our brain responds best at 20 minutes. So a 20-minute version is part of my program. But like I say, this is like that introduction, and see what the person's response is. The point is that we're setting the frequencies at different frequencies in each ear. So it is important to wear a headset. And that little difference in frequencies is engaging the brain into a state of, and if it's set at a certain frequency, which this is set to, going into a Zen meditative state. And it's actually I've gotten really interesting feedback about that. And then at the end, what's really nice is he introduces this melody towards the end that kind of brings you back into a higher frequency. So the frequency starts to go up and up more to a level of creativity, awakening, positive love and joy. So I call it like that massage where you go, hey, can you just take me away for a little while, but then bring me back so I'm not drooling while I walk out the door. I've got to I have a day to do. And that's been the feedback, especially from entrepreneurs. I actually had one woman where she listened to it and she wrote back where she said, what just happened to me? And I was like, wait a minute, what? But it was just fascinating because it was kind of somebody where I was like, I wonder if they'll even listen to it, but they came back like, I need this, I need everything that you have. So yeah, and that was actually over a period of time. She's like, because we were in a group together and all these wonderful magical things were happening for her. And she told me, she said in a comment in the Facebook group, she says, it's because of your meditation. I said, you're kidding. So, wow. Yeah.
Do you use would your sleep score improve, your HRV? Do you find it when people do that, their cortisol levels are better? And if they're deep sleep, REM sleep, do you find that is impacted when you put that together?
Well, that's exactly why I'm offering it to people, right? I'm like, here you go. And I have a 3-minute version for you. I've even used that myself. I'm like, it's the length of the song. And I was sitting outside of my accountant's office, it's like anything that just kind of gets us into that zone, which is nice. And it's music therapy. In fact, this was interesting. I had a client yesterday who is a sound healer. And I just asked them, I said, I'll be curious to see what you think of this audio. And oh my goodness, yeah, again, the feedback. And I was like, when you just want to, not to say that it's not genuine, but you just are like, really? It's exciting, right? We're just like, really that powerful, huh? And she just was raving about it. So, and that was in conjunction with the energy work, I will say. That was, so yeah, this is what I've been drawn to. And when you're drawn to energy work, enhancing, if you're listening to this and it's just like, the woo is coming out, the capital letters are getting bigger. It's getting more mainstream to be like, yes, we are 90, like I say, we are energy. So
yeah, I know. Well, it's Friday today, and we go walk on the beach and get in our feet in the water and just watch the sunset when we can. And it's just walking on the beach into the ocean water is just my sound healing. But I know it's just so powerful to do any of those type of things in nature and, get reconnected and the grounding and earthing and just try to unplug from everything, turn off your Wi-Fi and just do self-care things that, it doesn't require spending any money. It's just shut off things. It's just simple, but it's just, people don't realize that there's a lot of things you can do for free to start rebooting your body systems and push that alternate control delete button on your computer, do it on your body by just shutting down once in a while. Like you do fasting, we do a fast. Everyone's talking about fasting and these 3-day fasts and, include that in your fast that you're unplugging from everything as well. It'd be a good thing to incorporate.
We call it a digital fast.
Yeah. Digital detox and, fasting in all areas of life. So I have to promote that 3-day fast of everything.
Yeah. Or I just start with the evening. I'm like at a certain time, it's airplane mode.
Yeah, for sure. I do that. Yeah. Like if it's after 7, sorry, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And even if I look at something too, and then other night I did that and it was worrying me all night because someone had a question. I was trying to solve it sleeping. Like I could have done this the next morning and because they're not going to get my response in the middle of the night. So why do that to myself? Because it messed my sleep up because I, want to take care of people. So it's just like,
great example.
Why do that at nighttime? It's not helping anybody. So it's funny. So but give everyone where to find you on social media and your website again. We'll put all the links in the show notes to get your opt-in on try your meditation. Get started on that.
So Instagram is dr.melanie_ND. Facebook is also Dr. Melanie ND. And my website is theintuitiveedgedoctor.com.
What's your last name? I was looking at everything. I'm like, I don't see your last name. It's Dr. Melanie.
Dr. Melanie Keller.
Oh, Keller, that's what it was. Yeah, it's like you're known as Dr. Melanie. So there's no other Dr. Melanies. You're the Dr. Melanie.
Yeah, I will say that was part of my energetic healing and shift.
Was what? Dr. Melanie finding your name, branding your name, branding yourself, your
Yes.
specialty, your talents. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. What are you going to do this weekend to take care of yourself?
Pardon?
What are you doing this weekend to take care of you?
Oh, I have the luxury of being close to the La Brea tar pits here in Los Angeles. I walk there often. And so I like to spend time in between I call them my 3 trees. And I have a meditation planned. It's the summer solstice this weekend, and I'm very excited. Yeah, again, that was a big thing in growing up in Alaska, summer and winter solstice, but summer was
Alaska.
it.
For sure. Now,
So it
how do
has
you
a lot of-
celebrate summer solstice? What will you do to celebrate it?
Oh, for me, I am doing a lot. I have some rituals. I will definitely be doing this energy work. It is really incredible, the activations and upgrades I'm receiving just about what I want to do with my business. And I have some really big plans for corporate work that are coming to me. So I'm really doing a lot of journaling and getting grounded into manifesting what I want. Yeah.
Awesome.
And spending that time outside, calling it in.
And so what should people do? And this will come up after summer solstice, but give us like one tip to what people can do to celebrate the summer season, summer solstice, that they can do, kind of general.
Well, I think it's that, again, that appreciating life and abundance and length of time that we have to say, okay, again, to me, all it is bringing this awareness to us being on planet Earth. It's like, oh, this is the longest day of light. And how does that affect us? You know, we have the sun and we have this darkness. So how are you maximizing, enhancing your time awake so that you can sleep? Also, like honoring both times, I guess, is what I've been reflecting on.
Yeah, good. Well, I will wrap it up because I'll keep asking you questions. I said 30, 45 minutes and it's 50 minutes now. So I apologize. But so fun to talk stuff. And I love the intuitive edge and how people can get that more information on your website and try out that binaural beats. Meditation, I think, would be a great way to get started. So that's a good idea for your opt-in.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Happy summer solstice.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.